Hello, this is Dr. Mark Mirvalli, Professor of Theology and Mariology from the Franciscan University of Steubenville in Steubenville, Ohio. I am here in Ireland with Anne the Lay Apostle, and we will be speaking about the spiritual movement of the lay apostles of Jesus Christ, the returning King. It is important to keep in mind that all the messages that Anne has received have been released with the permission of the local bishop, Bishop Leo O'Reilly from the Diocese of Kilmore, Ireland, and have been submitted to the Vatican Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith for examination. Each and every dimension of this apostolate is completed in submission and in obedience to the local bishop and to the magisterium of the Catholic Church. Every true Christian is trying to do the Father's will, right? And in some way it's the great nutshell of all spirituality. Not my will, but the Father's will. Mm-hmm. Realistically also, there are distractions that are going to enter our lives, and we're going to have to make some hard choices on what we have to say no to, which could be a good, to say yes to what's the greater good, which is our Lord's will. Mm-hmm. Let's examine this October 7, 2004 message. And these are the words of Jesus. Quote, "My little apostles must put aside tasks that do not further my will. At this time, I am asking each one of you to bring the good news to souls. This is your heavenly instruction. I ask that you do this through your duty, first of all, because it is in living the holy and sacred life, following me in your daily duty, that I can bring you to holiness. This example of faithfulness will say far more to others than if you neglected your duty. So that is your first priority, and you may rest in the fact that this comes from me. The second priority, then, must be the spreading of these words. I want my words to move through your world steadily. I do not want a frantic haste, but neither do I want unnecessary delay. If you ask me to show you your role in this mission, I will show you. You must say yes to me. I speak to your hearts, little apostles. You know me because you follow me. Now is the time to let nothing distract you from the path to heaven. On that path you will find that I am asking you to bring this mission to fruition. This is the time for which you have been prepared. Many join the cause. Welcome them. Move forward with the greatest humility because you have each been chosen to do your little part. With your beautiful and total yes, I intend to save many souls. Do not be distracted. If you find you have been called, answer me with love, and you will find yourself immersed in heavenly grace." So Anne, a strong call of mission and also a reality check of the possibility of distractions. Mm-hmm. Talk about that for us.
Well, what struck me in listening there was the distractions can come in so many different forms. And I think the Lord makes it clear. First priority is your daily duty. Mm-hmm. Your second priority is the role in the apostolate. That's how I've been called to live. And it takes discipline. And then the enemy wants you to believe there's a conflict between your duty and your work for the Lord, and tries to sow this in your head. And you have to reject that. And my spiritual directors would always say, there's no conflict. Mm-hmm. There's no conflict. The Lord would not sow a conflict into your duty and into your apostolic call. Mm-hmm. So we have to respect that any conflict in our duty and our calling to the apostolate does not come from God. Mm-hmm. Okay? Right. So that's the first thing. There is no conflict between our service for the church and our service to our families or our primary vocations. Right. Okay, then, do not be distracted. Now, what are some of the things that can distract us? Well, materialism, hobbies. The enemy can lure you. And you have to be very alert to that. I mean, it's good to have diversions. It's good to have to get away from it all, to exercise, to have music or something. You have to have some joy, But we have to be alert to when those things become a pull that pulls us away from our first two priorities.
Right, and a realistic approach to at least Western life right now is we have a lot of material, recreational things available to us. And is it not possible, or is it something that we have to examine our heart to say, are we participating in them past a moderate point? Are we entertaining ourselves more than we should? In one of our Lord's messages, he talks about how parents are seeking to entertain themselves to the detriment of their children. So it's not that the entertainment and recreation is a bad thing. The question is it distracting us from these two great things?
Yeah. Well, if you look at, I don't know, I look at how I grew up, and I came from a pretty typical family at that time. I'm 46, so my parents lived in that time, they didn't go out all the time. I mean, they were home generally, but yet they took a walk every night by themselves. And I mean, there seems to be so many pulls on our time. This dinner and this, that, and this and this. I mean, when I see that, we don't participate clearly here in the country. We don't do that. But I mean, it would exhaust you.
Right. I mean, we've grown accustomed to the face of diversion, of a lot of recreation. And our Lord then says, I do not want a frantic haste, but neither do I want unnecessary delay. I mean, there's kind of a peaceful urgency that comes with this message. He doesn't want us doing anything, as you say, violating our first vocation. This is right at the heart of the church. This is the Vatican II call to holiness. Duty first, sanctification through duty. This is the wisdom of St. Francis de Sales and things like that. At the same time, there's also the reference of the need of a priority here, of duty, as you say, and then this apostolate, spreading this message of grace.
So when he says he doesn't want unnecessary delay, what he's saying is, do it now. Very simply. Move, work, serve.
Right, and that's all of us in our different ways. We can all exercise lay apostolate according to our vocations, and there's opportunities to bring Christ almost daily to different people, in different ways, of course. But I think, Jesus is saying, if you say yes to me, I speak to your hearts. If you ask me to show you your role in the mission, I will show you. And that means that when we hear this, I think we have to immediately say, all right, Lord, what's my role? I'm ready. What's my role?
That's right. And we have to assume a role. We have to assume an apostolic call, each and every one of us.
And when we're doing that, it goes back to what we've talked about before, this quiet in the heart. It's not enough to ask him and then not to listen to the answer. And there's a real sense where our Lord is guiding this apostolate so profoundly that if we ask, we can expect to get something back, can't we?
And he will respond to us. He says, if you find you have been called, answer me with love, and you will find yourself immersed in heavenly grace. So he gives the tap, and then we listen. And then we should listen very calmly and peacefully and allow the Lord to give birth to the service in our hearts. And, we can't always expect to be comfortable, but we can expect peace.
Right. So an examination of heart regarding distractions, the peace that our Lord is going to sustain this movement, and each of us asking, what are we supposed to do to be lay apostles? Great stuff, great foundational teachings. Thanks, Anne. And part of our call, again, with this rescue mission for souls, our Lord's inviting each one of us into this. The common question is, well, how do I do this? There's a practical legitimacy to saying, how do I do this today? And our Lord also seems to be emphasizing the importance of calm and seeking the divine will. Let's examine this October 9th, 2004 message. And these are the words of Jesus. My dear little apostles must heed my words in all calm. I am sending you the clearest instructions so that you have a clear vision of your mission. We are pulling souls back into the safety of the Christian family. We do so with love. My dear ones, I love you. I call you into service in all love, and through your service to me, you will gain the greatest of graces for the intentions you hold dear. Do not fear that you will lose by your service to the kingdom. There is only gain possible for you. Give me each of your concerns and begin. Walk each day in the knowledge that you are fulfilling God's holy will for you and fulfilling your role in the kingdom. It is for this mission you were placed on earth at this time. Do not refuse me. Say yes to Jesus. You will be filled with my light. Step forward in faith and allow my divine understanding to come to you. Well, those are rather remarkable words in saying that this is the reason we're on earth at this time, is for this rescue mission for souls. Comment on that, if you will.
Well, I see the rescue mission, I see this apostolate as part of the rescue mission. And there's sometimes people would see this apostolate as competing with another apostolate. And it's very important that we know that we don't compete, we all work together. And I think that this apostolate comes to minister to people where they are in service. And if they're not in service, it comes to call them into service and to, So that would be the first thing I would say, that we are all called to the rescue mission. And many of us have worked for Christ for many years in all our different ways. So I would want people to think they're being pulled away from their service.
Right.
The other thing that strikes me, and this is a temptation I think we all struggle with, is he says, I call you into service in all love, and through your service to me you will gain the greatest of graces for the intentions you hold dear. So he's saying you're not going to lose by serving me. It's not even possible for you to lose. We have a sense sometimes that we're giving something up and going to Christ. We're not giving something up. We're shaking something off and moving into the service to the Lord and to the family of Christ.
Right. And those are two huge points, because most of all, this mission is in no sense competing with the church, which is the ultimate rescue mission.
Right.
This is, as our Lord said earlier, this is reclaiming the church, a renewal, a movement of renewal, always within the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, who has always been given the task of a rescue mission, right? The redemption of souls. That we're called to be praying and offering and sacrificing and evangelizing to our brothers and sisters to bring souls back into the fold. And as you say, there is that mistaken idea that if I'm doing this, well, who's going to take care of my intentions? If I'm praying for the Lord's intentions, and that's one of the foundations of our Christian faith, that we do our Lord's work, He will exponentially take care of our intentions, our loved ones, our family members, our first responsibilities.
Yes, and all of our holy intentions come from His heart. So they are His intentions. There's no conflict, no difficulty with that. And all of the legitimate Catholic movements are like streams that go directly to Rome. And then they are like also streams that come directly from Rome. So it's all the same service.
Right. In that same mode of salvation. This is the mission. So to reemphasize exactly what you're saying, he says, I call you into service in all love, and through your service to me you will gain the greatest of graces for the intentions you hold dear. As you're saying, from His heart to our heart. It's not like we invented the intentions that we should have for our families and for the people that are loved ones. It's coming from Him. And then he goes on to say, give me each of your concerns and begin. Almost a sense of saying, take it from our heart, put it into His heart, be about His business, and He will, again, exponentially take care of our responsibilities.
And there's unity between the master and the servant. There's unity. There's no separation between our goals, His goals, and this. We can only benefit from this. We can only gain. He says here, I'm sending you the clearest instructions so that you have a clear vision of your mission. Now, I want to remark on that. There are many times in my service where I don't know where the mission is going. And if I sat with that, I could get hung up on that. So I just let go of that. I might not know where the mission is going or where Jesus is going, taking the mission, but I always know what He wants from me that day. Do you see? In the moment. So I don't know what the Lord's plans are for the apostolate, but I know that I have to clean the floor. I know that I have to cook dinner. So if you can rest in the present, a lot of our stress is alleviated.
Right. And in a real sense, Anne, isn't it true that when we look too far ahead, we get anxious? Because it's like the manna in the desert of the Old Testament. I mean, our Lord said, only take the manna for today. It reminds me of the little flower who talked about, her poem, just for today, Lord. Give me the grace to do your will just for today. She says in that poem, I don't want to worry about tomorrow. I don't have enough to tend
Yes,
for tomorrow.
that's
It's
right.
just for today. So
Right.
one of the major modes of anxiety for us is when we go too far ahead and the grace isn't there yet and the wisdom isn't there yet. But today's grace is there for us, that sacrament of the present moment. That's very strong in here as well.
Yes. So if we concentrate on that, we won't become frightened.
Right.
Yeah.
He ends by talking about stepping forward in faith, allow my divine understanding to come to you. Once again, it's not our mission, it's his mission. And he's going to give us the wisdom and the insight to sustain it.
Right, and it's where we'll get the anxiety, the anxiousness, is when we try to impose our will on it, on the service. Because it is the Lord's plan.
Right.
So we have to bring the mission to the world. We don't bring the world to the mission.
Right. It reminds me of what Mother Teresa said. I was able to speak to her about 6 weeks before she died, and she said over the phone, Mark, pray that I do not get in the way of God's design.
Exactly.
I wanted to say, Mother, you really want me to pray as if you could ever get in the way of God's design, but there's a profound truth in that you live that way, and for our mission here too, we don't get in the way of God's design, and we take the divine understanding as the foundation of the work.
And the beauty of that is she was aware of the risk.
Yeah.
And remained aware of the risk till the end of her life, and that's why she didn't step wrong.
Right. So clear instructions, trusting in our Lord to sustain it. Thank you, Anne.
Okay.
And there's a lot of discussion about the divine will. What is the divine will? How do you seek the divine will? Well, Jesus in this October 8th, 2004 message again reminds us that that's got to be our focal point, is seeking the divine will. So let me read that message and then we could talk about it. The message of October 8th, 2004, Jesus says, and I quote, "Little servants, seek only the divine will. On each day, I want you to consider what I require from you. This means you will often find yourself realigning your activities to fit into my needs. Your time must be fruitful for the kingdom, and for that to occur, you must always ask me what I would like you to do with your time. You see that I wish there to be constant communication between us. This may seem like a burden to you at first, but you will quickly become comfortable with unity to heaven. If heaven is to flow through you into the world, and that is the goal, you must let heaven direct everything. You know that we in heaven are willing to do that for you. We know that you are striving to allow heaven to direct you. How often we have asked you to practice. You are coming along, little apostles, and you are witnessing the way it is to be, with your serving and me directing. Move forward daily, always forward in my service, and you will see souls returning. I am with you in everything." And so, again, this union of heart becomes a foundation of any activity for a true lay apostle. Tell us about it.
Well, the divine will, seek only the divine will. And so what the Lord is actually asking, he has set us up for in the earlier volumes. And it's kind of culminating in volume 10. And instructions for volume 10, it's like a repeat, a reminder. He wants us throughout the day. He says, at first this may seem like a burden to you. Because what you're doing is you're going through your day and you're checking yourself all day long. Well, would the Lord want this? Would the Lord want this? And he's asked us in the other one to practice this. Remember, I am the early volume. I am with you. Okay, that's the kindergarten thing. Jesus is with me. And then I have a plan for each day. Jesus has a plan. I want you to embrace my plan for each day. So this is kind of the reminders of those things. I see the divine will as this beautiful stream of light, that is, heaven is so omnipresent. I mean, if that's a word, it's everywhere. Yeah, sure. And we are with heaven, united to heaven, if we are in this place of the divine will in our souls. The Lord can do whatever. We want to be like chess pieces. That Jesus can move with any whimsy he has. Right. So he's asking us for this. And when we move through our days this way, and it is doable, this can be done with very little effort. The effort will come from heaven. Right. We have the desire, the Lord will provide the way. Right. Great things happen when we do this. And we get up with a plan and we go to bed and we look back and we see that, some of it worked out the way we expected and much of it was unexpected. Right. So it's actually a foretaste of heaven to
Right.
serve in this way.
Yeah, it sounds so much like different elements of Christian life where God provides tremendous graces, but we also have to cooperate. And you know, when he says, you must always ask me what I would like you to do with your time,
Right.
constant communication, he's almost saying, you know, with this burden concept, you're going to have to work at this. You're going to have to start acquiring the virtue, the habit, the good habit of several times of the day saying, Jesus, how do you wish me to serve you
Right,
now?
right.
How do you wish me to serve you now?
Right.
Well, at first, like any exercise, it's burdensome at the beginning. Then it becomes, like St. Thomas Aquinas says, it enters with a facility, an easiness. You know, the difference between a little kid playing his first piano recital and a concert pianist who's looking away from the keys. It's going to be tough at the beginning to keep communicating to our Lord, to keep our antenna up to get the word, and then a certain facility, an easiness seems to enter
right,
in.
right. A naturalness, something you can't do without. It's like this. If you listen, you have to listen. In the earlier volumes, he says, silence, be quiet. And if you're very quiet, you can start to hear this beating of the Sacred Heart, this rhythmic beating constantly in your day. And then when you become used to the silence in your soul and this presence of the Lord, of this beating of the Lord's heart, that's all you hear. And nothing else really makes sense. And if you pull away from this rhythmic beating, you get lonesome, you get anxious, you get frightened, and you'll see those symptoms immediately. You'll run back to Christ.
Right.
And then you'll get back into the rhythm of the beating of the Sacred Heart. Once you learn to move through your days accompanied by that rhythmic beating of the Lord's Sacred Heart, you really find yourself freezing when you lose it.
So now tell me more about this light of the divine will. Someone comes off the street and says, Ann, I hear a lot about the divine will. How do you best explain the divine will? You started talking about a beautiful, concept and image and even experience of that. Expand that for us if you could.
Well, if you look at heaven, this place of the divine will is heaven, the heavenly kingdom. We're all connected to it. There's no separations. We might have our backs to it. And then if we turn to face it, we look up at God. God looks back at us. There's a beautiful gaze that goes between us, and that is the stream of light that is the divine will. So we just want to make sure we're looking to God, we're looking to Jesus, and we will always find that he is looking back. And then as we become used to, and you have to constantly turn the face back to the gaze, and the enemy, of course, is going like this.
Right.
And you have to do that maybe 1,000 times in a day sometimes. You keep returning to the Lord, to the God, the Father's gaze. And that is how I see that stream of the divine will, always nourished and sustained by the stream. Always the discernment, the wisdom, the wherewithal will come from this. There's a lot more to it that I see. I mean, I see it as a place that we are all welcomed in. And
the best way to realign ourselves when our face has been turned away, whether it's the world, the flesh, the devil, how do we get realigned to the divine will?
An act of our will. Jesus, I need you. Lord, I seek you. This is why those beautiful ejaculation prayers are so important, all day long. Jesus, I trust in you. Mother Mary, save me, help me, protect me. Angels of heaven, direct my path. And, all of those things all day long. A little sentence like that will put you right back into memory, and to get that you are working for heaven.
Yeah. It's almost like the great mystical writings of Teresa and John and Catherine of Siena. A spousal relationship, when your spouse is in the room, they're always there. Even if they're not talking to you, the presence of the spouse is there. And it seems like the more we can do that with Jesus, that this communication is going, that's what's going to feed us in our service. So we're talking about divine will, realigning when we have to, keeping our face to the stream so that Jesus can sustain us in the task of lay apostleship. Yeah, great stuff. Thank you, Anne.